Welcome to Stories by Rushik podcast. So I want you to imagine standing in the middle of a really busy city square, and you are just absolutely furious.
Oh, yeah. We have all been there.
Right. But in this scenario, you are trying to dismantle this towering 40-foot bronze monument, and your only tool is a fragile wooden toothpick.
Wow, okay, a toothpick. That is quite the visual.
Yeah, exactly. So you are chipping away at this massive pedestal and you're sweating, you are getting splinters in your fingers. You look completely unhinged to everyone walking by.
I mean, I would definitely cross the street if I saw that.
Right. And meanwhile, the statue just stares blankly ahead, completely unfazed. And that exhausting, ridiculous, and utterly pointless exercise is exactly what you are doing every single time you try to win an argument with someone who is intensely self-absorbed.
It is basically the ultimate zero-sum game, except you are the only one losing energy. Because usually we approach these difficult personalities armed with all these earnest communication strategies.
Oh, for sure. The I statements and boundary setting.
Exactly. We talk about finding some mythical common ground. But the baseline assumption of all that advice is a shared reality. The idea that if we just find the perfect combination of words, the other person will suddenly see reason.
But the material we are unpacking today completely throws that diplomatic rulebook out the window. It is so refreshing.
It really is.
We are looking at this brilliant piece of writing called The Empty Theater of the Narcissist, an anatomy of the unmovable monument written by Rushik. And the core premise flips the script entirely.
Instead of treating a clash with a narcissist like this delicate diplomatic crisis, you need to solve the textile. Frames it as a bizarre spectator sport, one where the only way to actually win is to just leave the stadium.
Which is such a wild way to look at it, because he has this incredible way of taking an experience that is universally exhausting and making it almost entertaining.
The thought leadership here isn't about giving you 10 arduous steps to fix the person or, salvage the relationship. It is about completely dismantling the way we approach these dynamics, using some of the most striking, absurd imagery you will ever encounter.
Like the monument and the toothpick.
Right. He shifts the perspective from sheer frustration to this kind of dark, liberating humor.
So let's actually start there with that opening imagery, because it perfectly captures that visceral instinct we all have. When you interact with someone who genuinely acts like the sun, orbits their lunch plans, the immediate human reflex is to take them down a peg.
Oh, absolutely. You want to correct the record. You feel this intense moral obligation to introduce them to reality.
I constantly struggle with this. But wait, isn't it just human nature to want to do that? Like, when someone is operating on a completely different planet, making wild claims about how everything is someone else's fault, why is it so impossible to just show them the actual facts?
Because of the monument effect. Think about the mechanical reality of that toothpick on bronze. You throw all your emotional energy into this confrontation. You ruin your own tools.
The splinters.
Right, the metaphorical splinters. Meanwhile, the monument feels absolutely nothing. It does not register your impeccable logic or your rising voice or your total exhaustion.
It just maintains that stony, self-important expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Completely immune to the tiny scrapes you are making at its base. But to answer your question about why we can't just show them the facts, the text introduces this brilliant concept. The personal gravity well.
Okay, the personal gravity well. I love this part.
Right. So we mistakenly assume that a highly self-absorbed person is just being stubborn. We think they see the exact same objective reality we do, but they're just choosing to be difficult for the sake of their ego.
Which is usually why I feel the urge to pull out a proverbial chart and say, look, mathematically, you are not the center of the universe.
But this analysis suggests it is actually a structural feature of their reality. They possess a self-regard that is so incredibly dense that light literally cannot escape it.
So we are dealing with the astrophysics of the human ego here. They are essentially a psychological black hole.
That is the literal reality of their mindset.
Yeah.
In astrophysics, a massive gravity well bends space and time around it. Anything that gets too close gets pulled in, stretched, and crushed.
And in this psychological version, their dense self-regard bends all facts and all logic toward themselves.
Right. When they believe the office revolves around their mood, that is their literal truth, showing them a factual chart is utterly useless because once that chart crosses the event horizon of their ego, it gets completely distorted.
The light of your logic gets swallowed up before it ever reaches their consciousness.
Exactly.
Well, that explains why pointing out facts feels like talking to a brick wall. Although, actually a brick wall would be an improvement. because a brick wall just stops your words. It doesn't actively distort them into something else.
Yeah, which brings up a terrifying scenario for the rest of us. Because if basic facts do not work and their gravity well distort everything, well, what actually happens to our well-crafted logical arguments when we try to confront them?
The imagery shifts here, right? Yeah. From a bronze monument to a fortress made of reinforced titanium.
Yes. You go into a confrontation thinking you are firing off these brilliant, sharp arrows of reality.
Oh, yeah. You have practiced your speech in the shower. You have your bullet points memorized. You construct this flawless, logical argument.
But those arrows just bounce right off the titanium plating. Actually, wait, they don't merely bounce off. The text details a highly advanced psychological defense system at work behind those titanium walls.
Right, the translation mechanism.
Exactly. If you manage to point out a genuine flaw, their defense system instantly intercepts it and translates your critique into a secret confession of envy.
So it is basically like a psychological spam filter.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, you send them a very clear message, something like, hey, the way you spoke to me in that meeting was completely disrespectful. And their brain's algorithm flags that message, scans it for threats to their self-image, and just routes it to a folder labeled, they're just intimidated by me.
The translation mechanism is flawless. The algorithm kicks in and says, warning, reality detected, rerouting to ego protection protocol.
That is so wild, but so accurate.
So the message they actually process in their head isn't about disrespect at all. The message they hear is, you are so commanding and brilliant and dominant in that meeting that my fragile ego couldn't handle your success, so I'm lashing out.
I have seen this happen in real time, and it is absolutely maddening. You can literally see their eyes gloss over your actual words, and they reply with this condescending smirk.
Yes, that's smirk.
Like they pity you for being so jealous of their greatness. I mean, how are you even supposed to respond to that without completely losing your mind?
Well, the secret is you don't respond to it. Once you understand this spam filter is running 24 hours a day, you realize you are participating in a farce.
The anger just kind of has to dissipate.
Because the situation is fundamentally absurd. His writing recommends viewing them instead as a walking comedy show or a living museum of misplaced confidence.
A living museum where every single exhibit is just a mirror reflecting their own face. That line is so sharp.
It is brilliant. I mean, walk through that museum in your mind for a second. You enter the Renaissance wing expecting to see historical masterpieces, and it is just a giant mirror.
And then you wander into the modern art exhibit, and it is another mirror.
You go to the cafeteria mirror. The sheer absurdity of a mind that can only ever see itself in every interaction, every conversation, every conflict.
Reframing your experience this way is incredibly liberating, honestly. You are no longer a battered combatant trying to breach a titanium fortress. You just become an amused observer taking a stroll through a very bizarre gallery.
You are just a tourist looking at the reflections.
Right, like, oh, wow, another mirror. How avant-garde. Look at how they made this conversation about my weekend somehow, about their vacation from 3 years ago. Fascinating.
It completely strips away their power to frustrate you. The power shifts entirely back to you. Because if you know their brain is going to auto-translate everything you say into a condiment anyway, you realize that engaging is just providing raw material for their ego machine.
So let's talk about the tactical side of this then, because we have established that bringing a toothpick to a monument fight is a terrible idea.
Definitely.
And we know firing logical arrows at a titanium spam filter just feeds their delusion. So we have to change our behavior. The most elegant strategy provided in the text is to simply step away. Just let them enjoy their imaginary kingdom.
Right, we overcomplicate our responses because we feel this burning, righteous need to humble them. We launch these grand, exhausting crusades to bring them down to earth.
But the text argues that trying to fix their perspective is the ultimate waste of your own potential.
And to illustrate this, we get what might be the most memorable analogy in the entire piece.
The goldfish playing the cello.
Yes. Let's really break down the mechanics of that visual because it is so good.
It is exhausting, just picturing the logistics of it. You have this tiny, incredibly delicate wooden string instrument.
And a tiny little bow.
Yeah, and you are trying to tape this miniature bow to a wet, slippery fin.
Which is impossible.
Right, and the goldfish is just swimming in circles in its bowl-blowing bubbles, completely oblivious to the concept of Beethoven.
It just wants fish flakes.
Exactly, and you are standing there outside the bowl, tapping a music stand, demanding they keep tempo. I mean, think about it, How much of your own time have you wasted trying to teach cello to a goldfish in your daily life? It is exhausting just picturing it.
You really have to ask yourself who the crazy person is in that scenario. Is it the goldfish?
Probably not.
No, the goldfish is doing exactly what its nature dictates. It is a fish. The absurd one is the giant human getting red in the face, screaming about musical theory and pitch to a creature whose only priority is waiting for flakes to drop from the sky.
It ruins your day, and it merely confuses the fish.
Exactly. We put so much expectation on people who fundamentally lack the capacity to meet us in a shared reality.
We desperately want them to play the beautiful, complex music of reciprocal human connection. We want them to harmonize with us.
And they just want to swim around looking at their own distorted reflection in the curved glass of the bowl.
That realization forces a massive tactical pivot, because since you cannot teach them the cello, and you certainly cannot dismantle the bronze monument, the only viable move is to leave the theater entirely.
The concept of the empty auditorium is the true climax of this text. The core insight here is that your absence is the ultimate commentary.
Okay, but walking away sounds great in theory, but I always struggle with the aftermath of that choice.
How so?
Well, doesn't leaving just give them the satisfaction of thinking they won the argument? Like, if I walk out of the auditorium, don't they just stand on stage thinking they gave a brilliant performance that left me totally speechless? Doesn't that just let them off the hook?
I get why you'd feel that way, but think about what a self-absorbed person actually needs. They are putting on a continuous, lifelong one-person show. And that show absolutely requires an audience. They need someone to react, to argue, to validate their existence. And that validation doesn't even have to be positive.
Wait, really? So conflict works just as well?
Conflict works just fine as fuel. When you stay and argue with them, you are sitting in the front row, supplying the energy they require to keep the performance going.
Oh, wow. So even if I am sitting in the front row, booing, throwing metaphorical tomatoes at the stage, I am still in the seat.
Exactly.
I am still keeping the show alive because my attention is entirely focused on them.
Booing is premium engagement. It proves they matter enough to make you angry. But an empty room has terrible acoustics for an ego.
Terrible acoustics. I love that.
Right. When you quietly stand up, gather your coat, and walk out the back doors, you aren't conceding defeat. You are cutting off the power supply to the building.
You remove all the oxygen from their performance without lifting a single finger in argument.
Yes, your sheer absence says everything that needs to be said, and it leaves them with absolutely nothing to push against.
Okay, so I have walked out the back doors of the theater. I'm standing in the alleyway. What happens next? Because the text focuses heavily on what you, the listener, get back in this exchange, which is something we rarely talk about.
We usually only focus on the conflict itself.
Right. But here, you reclaim your time and your energy while leaving them alone on their stage, grandly bowing to an audience of one.
The image of the grand bow to the empty seats is so vivid. It is a pathetic scene, but crucially, it is no longer your problem.
You are letting them walk the earth with the quiet certainty that they are the main character in a global drama.
You have stopped trying to rewrite their script, and you are simply refusing to be a cast member.
There is something incredibly peaceful about that surrender. It sounds incredibly peaceful. Is this the ultimate victory, then? Not a victory of being right or winning an argument, but a victory of just reclaiming your own peace of mind.
It absolutely is. The need to be right is the anchor that keeps us trapped in their gravity well. We sacrifice our peace, our free time, and our emotional bandwidth on the altar of wanting the other person to admit we are right, or at least admit they are wrong.
Which is what we are culturally conditioned to chase.
Exactly. But Ruscha gives the reader explicit permission to let go of that need entirely. Let them think they won. Let them applaud themselves for simply existing. The real win is that you get to step outside.
You get to enjoy the fresh air outside their stuffy theater. You get to watch from a safe distance, breathing real air, living in a world where everyone isn't just an extra in someone else's movie.
It really makes you realize how claustrophobic it was inside that auditorium, constantly managing their ego and dodging their titanium defenses.
And when you finally stop fighting the unmovable monument, you suddenly have this massive reserve of energy back.
You can spend it on people who actually want to build something real with you. You stop wasting your precious time wandering the halls of a living museum of misplaced confidence, and you get back to the actual messy, beautiful, reciprocal world.
The contrast between those two spaces is just night and day. It all circles back to realizing what our role actually is in these dynamics. If they truly believe they are the main character in their own global drama, Perhaps the most empowering realization you can have is that you were never required to be their co-star.
You were only ever cast as a prop in their theater, a mirror to reflect their greatness, or a sounding board for their ego.
And the beautiful thing about being a prop is that you have no lines to memorize. You have no contractual obligation to the plot. A prop can simply be picked up and placed outside the building.
You have the total agency to remove yourself from the stage, entirely leaving them to play the cello to a room full of empty seats.
Let them play for no one. Thank you for listening to Stories by Rushik podcast. For more such podcasts, follow Stories by Rushik on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Prime Music, and YouTube.